is Where the Devil Is by a group called Pandemic. It's appropriate since we're in week 2 of remote access lockdown. This week you have an exam that you need to do in the previous 3 chapters, 7, 8, and 9. When you're done with that, we're going to start Chapter 10. Chapter 10 starts talking about some of the things has to do with sentencing. All of this stuff starts with the offender being already convicted. So we already went through an arrest, we already went through an investigation, we already went through a trial. Now we're to the point where they've been convicted and we're trying to figure out what to do with them punishment-wise. And this first chapter is really talking about sentences that are done through the community. So these are instead of going to prison. And the most common one is probation. Probation is a sentence where it's really a contract between the offender and the state. The state agrees not to send you to prison now, and in turn gives you what they call conditions of probation. So what it is a list of things you must live by to maintain your presence in the community. Stuff like you got to get a job, you can't commit another crime, you can't hang out with previous offenders, people who've been convicted of felonies. A lot of times there's alcohol and drug restrictions. You can't drink, you can't do drugs. And the reason behind these is, number one, is a punishment, but also as kind of for you to prove to society that you should be free and in society instead of in prison. A newer trend with probation is they're starting to look at risk assessments. So instead of just giving everyone the same conditions, they're trying to identify what risks you have that made you commit your crime, and then build your conditions around those risk factors. And they do that through a risk assessment tool. So they'll actually sit down and make you fill out a questionnaire and then do an interview with you to try to identify what risk factors were present that made you commit your crime. One of the other things we're doing in conjunction with probation is they're starting to do some cognitive behavioral therapy. And these are therapies that they actually look at you and say, we're going to try to retrain you how to think of crime, how to think of right and wrong, how to make better decisions as an adult, how to make decisions that allow you to live successfully in society. These are called cognitive behavioral therapy programs. Along with probation, they also have a group of intermediate sanctions, is one of the things they call. And these can be part of probation, these can be instead of probation, these can be a little stricter than probation, a little more lenient than probation. They're things like house arrest. You got to stay in your house every minute of every day except to go to work, except to go to school. A lot of times these house arrest programs also involve some kind of electronic monitoring. You got to wear the ankle monitor. You got to have other electronic devices. I know they're looking at technology now that's a watch. Other things like that they can help monitor your movements. One of these intermediate sanctions might be restitution. So not only do you get probation or do you get house arrest, but you have to pay back a certain dollar amount that they equate to the crime you committed. Maybe it goes to the victim, maybe it goes to the state. Any of those can be possible. One of the last areas they talk about in this chapter that's important is it's a restorative justice intermediate sanction. And this whole program is based on an old concept where they look at bringing together the offender, they look at bringing together the victim, members of society, members of the families, and they try to come up with a program where, and one of the terms is, everyone feels whole again. So they're trying to put together a thing where they say, okay, what do we need to do to make you feel better about it? And they actually sit down all together, and the victim gets to say what they want to have happen. And society's representative, which is usually someone from the district attorney's office, gets to say what they get to say. And then they decide what the sentence is going to be based on with this. They've actually had quite a bit of success with this with younger offenders, juvenile offenders. So you steal from somebody, and instead of just going to juvie jail or having your parents pay for what you stole, maybe they have you work in this business for X amount of hours for free, and that's your sentence, paying back to that business owner. Maybe if you're caught doing the graffiti, your sentence is you show up on the weekend and you paint over your graffiti. Those are all kind of restorative justice type things. You know, you do criminal misdeeds and you break things. So instead of going to juvie jail, restorative justice says, you know, you have to work to repair the damage you did. Like I said, these things are actually showing pretty good promise for juvenile offenders, not so much for adult offenders. Read through the chapter. There's a PowerPoint posted out there. Read through the PowerPoint. You've got a exam to take, exam number 3. It's open book, open note, and you can use the prior PowerPoints for that. It's over chapters 7, 8, and 9. You get one attempt. If you go to the activity section, that's where you'll find that under quizzes. For this chapter, for this week 10, you'll also have a discussion that you need to do. Original post by Wednesday, follow-up posts by Sunday, and there'll be a new assignment based on these probation and intermediate sanctions. That'll be due by next Sunday.